From an inspiring welfare state model to a cautionary tale of the erosion of freedom and stability and the rise of political and religious conflicts. Good land, birds perched. But if too many birds flock to it, will the land remain intact? Sweden must have asked itself this question over the past few years, as their land has now become barren and reeks of gunpowder. Why is the government still seen as calm and indifferent to the catastrophic actions that are the aftershocks of the immigration crisis? In today's video, Anywhere Diary will explore how the country that once had the lowest gun crime rate in Europe turned a corner to be ranked number 2. How the smell of gunfire has tainted the country's famously beautiful forests and lakes. And how refugees migrants have turned this paradise into ruins, just like their own country. Once a beacon of social progress, Sweden now grapples with a series of crises that have tarnished its reputation as a harmonious nation. This Nordic paradise, renowned for its welfare state and open-door immigration policy, has seen fractures emerge that threaten its very fabric. Sweden remains one of the world's wealthiest countries, with an average GDP per capita of $60,000. But this number is no longer a source of pride for the people in recent years. The influx of refugees during the 2015 migration crisis, while well-intentioned, has strained Sweden's social safety net. The government's strategy of dispersing newcomers throughout the country, though meant to alleviate pressure on urban centres, has inadvertently created isolated communities. These neighbourhoods, often characterised by high unemployment and limited access to resources, have become breeding grounds for social problems. Non-Western immigrants in Sweden are disproportionately reliant on government welfare, with a dependency rate 9 times higher than that of native Swedes. These marginalised communities have become fertile ground for armed gangs to recruit vulnerable individuals. The surge in gang-related gun violence is a stark reminder of Sweden's complex social and economic challenges. Not a long-standing, experienced economy, Sweden's transformation from one of Europe's poorest countries to a global economic powerhouse, especially after the world entered the period of industrialization, is a testament to its resilience and strong work ethic. From before until now, Swedes are proud of their welfare state. The Scandinavian model combines high taxes, collective bargaining, and a relatively open economy. The result is excellent living standards, high wages, and impressive female labour force participation. The reputation of the Swedish welfare state is the envy of left-wing politicians in other countries. Bernie Sanders has cited Sweden and neighbouring Denmark as his ideal models of social democracy. Free market principles and a limited role for the government initially fueled Sweden's economic growth. However, a significant shift occurred in the 1960s as the country embarked on a path toward a more extensive welfare system. The concept of folkum, or people's home, gained prominence. This metaphor likened Sweden to a family, where citizens were expected to care for one another, regardless of their background. This philosophy played a pivotal role in Sweden's welcoming stance toward refugees. So, Sweden is one of the Nordic countries known for its open social policies and humanitarian traditions. For decades, the country has built its image as a safe and friendly destination for immigrants and refugees. The beginning of the problems that followed came when Sweden accepted about 163,000 refugees during the migrant crisis in 2015, according to figures from the Swedish Migration Agency. This is a huge number compared to the size of Sweden's population, which was only about 10 million at the time. The decline of Sweden's reputation is a cautionary tale for other nations considering similar immigration policies. It underscores the importance of careful planning, adequate resources, and effective integration strategies to ensure that the influx of newcomers benefits both the host society and the immigrants themselves. The image of Sweden with snow-covered forests and romantic wooden houses like fairy tales is almost only in books. In recent years, people have had to get used to the image of a still warm Sweden, but with weapons, arson, riots and protests everywhere across the country. Stockholm riots, Malmö riots, Gothenburg riots are keywords that have filled the country's newspapers in these years. A look at some prominent events in Rinkeby, a suburb of Stockholm, which has become the focal point of various social issues. This area is home to a large immigrant community, mainly from Somalia, Iraq and Middle Eastern countries. Inequality, high unemployment rates and gang activity have created a powder keg ready to explode. The inequality, unemployment and crime have fostered a tense atmosphere. The 2017 riots, which broke out after a police arrest, exposed deep cracks in Swedish society. Images of streets turning into battlegrounds, burning cars and clashes between police and protesters have become a wake-up call to the challenges this country is facing. The peaceful cities of Malmö and Gothenburg were not spared from the escalating violence that swept across Sweden during the 2022 to 2023 crisis. Smoke and gunfire filled the streets, homes and cars were vandalized, and the once serene atmosphere was shattered by screams and shouts. The idyllic image of Sweden, once a beacon for immigrants, was replaced by a grim reality. A miniature battlefield where the heat of conflict threatened to melt even the nearby Arctic icebergs. But more than anything, what people often talk about when mentioning Sweden is the public burning of the Quran, the most important religious text in Islam. This provocative act not only deeply hurt the Muslim community, but also threatened the country's social stability and harmony, while causing serious repercussions on the international stage. From 2023 to 2024, Sweden had at least 12 Quran-burning cases, with the participation of extremist figures and small groups of supporters. The Quran-burning protest organised by Paludan quickly spread and became a focal point of international media attention. This provocative action ignited serious riots in several major Swedish cities, causing property damage and injuring many people. The authorities have launched investigations and prosecuted those involved in the riots, including radical protesters and criminal groups who took advantage of the situation to cause trouble. Even so, Sweden's diplomatic relations with several Middle Eastern countries have been strained by protests over the desecration of the Quran. Swedish police have stressed that they only issue permits for public gatherings, not for the activities that take place at them. The rise of far-right nationalist movements in Europe, including in Sweden, has created a fertile ground for discriminatory and xenophobic behaviour. Rasmus Paludan and his Stramkurs party have capitalised on the insecurity and anxiety of a segment of the population to promote xenophobic and anti-Islamic ideologies. Moreover, economic and social inequalities have deepened the divide between communities, especially between native Swedes and immigrants. The Muslim community, already struggling to integrate, feels discriminated against and vulnerable. Despite its strength and resilience, Sweden has endured significant trauma in the wake of a series of crises. The nation's once stable foundations have been shaken, as every region has grappled with barriers, challenges, and prolonged tensions. These conflicts have not only divided the population, but have also strained the relationship between the people and their government. The economic burden is one of the factors causing Sweden to regret its previous decision to allow the mass influx of refugees. Sweden has long been among the countries with an aging workforce, and now they are dealing with a large number of immigrants, many of whom are unemployed and dependent on government welfare and support. This burden falls on the government and the working-age population, who must work harder, while the benefits they receive may decrease as the state has to care for the refugees. More serious than the economic sector, Sweden, a country once renowned for its peace and safety, is now facing an alarming reality. The rate of serious violence involving firearms has skyrocketed in recent years, far exceeding the European average. In the past year, the Nordic country of 10 million people recorded 363 shooting incidents, leaving 55 people pass away, while all three other Nordic countries, Norway, Finland, and Denmark only recorded a total of 6 shooting deaths. According to the Swedish National Council for Crime Prevention, from 2014 to 2017, Sweden ranked second in Europe for firearm-related violence, just behind Croatia. By 2018, this figure had risen even higher, making Sweden a hotspot for weapon violence on the continent. The alarming increase in serious violence involving firearms in Sweden is closely tied to social unrest in certain areas. Investigations show that the majority of incidents are concentrated in areas with high crime rates, particularly those involving organized criminal gangs. This has led to severe consequences, not only heightening fear within communities, but also tarnishing the image of a country once considered safe and civilized. Faced with an unstable situation with a series of problems that cannot be quickly resolved, the Democratic Party, with its far-right faction opposing refugees, especially Muslim immigrants, has begun to rise as a matter of course. Before the crisis, the Sweden Democrats were a small party with a negligible number of supporters. However, following the 2015 crisis, this party emerged as a major political force by capitalizing on public concerns over mass immigration, rising crime, and social instability. The party's support increased from 12.9% in the 2014 parliamentary elections to over 17.5% in 2018, making it the third largest party in Sweden's parliament. This shift altered the balance of power in Sweden's political system, which had previously been considered stable and traditionally open. Moreover, the Sweden Democrats have rallied support by focusing on issues related to immigration, gang crime, and social welfare. They argue that taking in too many immigrants, particularly from Muslim-majority countries, is causing societal division and weakening Swedish culture. The party has also criticised the government's open immigration and welfare policies, as well as its handling of the crisis. In a chaotic situation with a wounded Swedish image torn and destroyed by factional conflicts, the first thing that needs to be handled is to adjust immigration policy to be as strict and restrictive as possible. Fortunately, the government gradually accepted the problem. During 2015 to 2016, Sweden temporarily re-established border controls with neighbouring EU countries such as Denmark and Germany. Previously, according to the Schengen Agreement, the internal EU borders were uncontrolled, leading to Sweden being overloaded when many refugees from other countries chose it as their final destination. Additionally, to reduce the number of asylum applications, Sweden transitioned from granting permanent residence permits to temporary permits of 1 to 3 years. This allowed the government to assess refugees' integration potential before granting them long-term status. Besides, the government tightened family reunification policies. Previously, refugees could easily bring their families to Sweden. However, new regulations now require immigrants to demonstrate financial stability and adequate housing before being eligible for family reunification. This has helped control the flow of secondary immigration. In a significant policy shift, Sweden announced in September 2023 that immigrants voluntarily returning home would receive financial incentives of up to $34,000. This measure is expected to encourage some immigrants to leave the country voluntarily. The government's efforts have yielded results. Asylum applications have plummeted, and Sweden is on track to record its lowest number of asylum applications since 1997. These changes have also contributed to a decline in net migration, the first such decline in 50 years. After more than a decade of liberal immigration policies, the current government came to power in 2022 with a pledge to crack down on gangs. In response to the complicated riot situation in areas such as Rinkeby, Rosengård and Norrköping, the Swedish government has significantly increased the presence of the police force. Equipped with modern equipment and expanded powers, the police have proactively deployed measures to prevent and suppress violence. Rapid response teams, reinforced riot police, along with a modern surveillance camera system, have formed a tight security network, significantly reducing riots and arresting many people who disturb public order. To reduce tensions and prevent violence, the Swedish government has implemented a number of practical measures. First, it has increased dialogue with immigrant communities and religious organizations, especially the Muslim community. In addition, educational programs on multiculturalism and respect for religion have been promoted to build bridges between communities. In parallel, the government has focused on high-risk areas such as Rinkeby and Rosengård, where youth support, job creation and vocational training programs have been implemented to prevent crime and violence. At the same time, initiatives to integrate immigrants have been promoted to help them integrate smoothly into society. The efforts have paid off, with fatal shootings falling from a peak of 62 in 2022 to 54 in 2023, and 31 so far in 2024. The turmoil in Sweden serves as a stark reminder for Western nations grappling with large-scale Muslim immigration, particularly those that have adopted a liberal, open-door policy. The rise of far-right movements, fueled by fears of societal upheaval, highlights the awkward balance between humanitarianism and social concerns. This global dilemma, balancing humanitarianism with societal concerns, has reached a boiling point. Sweden urgently needs to address these tensions before they escalate further. So, what about you? What do you think about the way the immigration crisis has damaged the country and predicts Sweden's future? Please comment below so everyone can know. If you found this video insightful, hit that like button and subscribe to stay updated on our latest content. Don't forget to ring the bell for instant notifications. Your support fuels our passion for creating meaningful content. Thank you for watching.